This is Richard Liebesbach of the Self-Protection Essentials, and today we're talking about active shooter survivability. Yes, you can survive an active shooter situation. People do it all the time. Well, all the time that there's active shooter situations. People die too, but a lot of them are dying because of ignorance and because they've been told the wrong stuff by people who are probably ignorant, people who have not thought through the situation. If you don't think through the situation now, when the crisis comes, you probably won't be able to pull off anything meaningful. So let's think. What can you do to survive an active shooter situation? Part of that is understanding what an active shooter situation is and what kind of tools they're going to be using during it. Active shooter situation, somebody is in your local environment. They're trying to shoot a bunch of people. Okay, you got that part. It took the government a long time to figure out what that definition was. Now you've got it. What are they using? Guns. What kind of guns? Well, there's basically two kinds. There's revolvers and there's fully automatic weapons of war. Oh, you're thinking I left something out. You're probably thinking, well, what about this thing I keep hearing about called semi-automatic? Okay, here's what it is. It's the same thing as a revolver, just different. A revolver, there's a cylinder in the gun. When you take and pull the trigger, it goes bang, and then that cylinder revolves to bring the next round into position for the next time you pull the trigger. A semi-automatic is the same thing, only instead of being a cylinder that revolves, it's a box with a spring in the bottom. And that kind of like a deodorant stick where as the stuff at the top gets used up, it moves the next piece into play. So you take a shot, it goes bang, that spring in the bottom of the box pushes the next round into position so that it can wait there for that next trigger pull. So it's the same thing as a revolver. It's not any kind of horrible mystic thing that's going to just reach out and kill you by itself. So when you hear about semi-automatic weapons on the news, just remember, it's just a revolver. It's the same thing. One pull, one bang, big deal. Okay, if the bullet's coming at you, it's a big deal. But forget about that part for now. We're not talking about that. We're talking about survivability and what you can do. What you can do is you can pay attention to sound. When a gun goes bang, it is extremely loud. It's a lot louder than you've ever heard unless you're actually a shooter. It's something akin to a large balloon next to your ear being popped. It's going to be that disorienting. It's going to be that loud unless you have hearing protection on. And of course you're not going to, because you're going to be either in a school or a bar or in a church. Churches. Now there's something for you to realize. More people die from violence in churches every year than die in active shooter situations from other locations like schools and nightclubs. Churches are very violent places. You're only there for 2.5 to 4 hours a week. Children are in school for 30 hours a week. And yet more people die from violence in church than die in active shooter situations at schools. Things need to be done, and that's part of what this video is about. What can be done? Now, part of it comes down to time. We talked about how a semi-automatic gun has a box and it pushes bullets into position. Well, when that box is empty, you have to replace it. It takes time to do that. And I'll give you an example of how much time it takes. Watch this video. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, 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 bang. Okay, you saw It took 4 to 6 seconds for me to reload that gun, to replace that box when nothing was being thrown at my head. You also saw how long it took when somebody was throwing stuff at my head. And it was all soft stuff. Beach toys, basically. And I knew they were coming. But I was still dodging them anyway, and it wasn't part of the act. I knew they were coming, and anytime something came towards my head, I just had to dodge out of the way. I didn't want to get hit, even though in my conscious mind, I knew it couldn't hurt me. Instinct took over, and I had to dodge them. So we went from 4 to 6 seconds when not being interrupted to 9 to 12 seconds when being interrupted. Okay, 9 to 12 seconds, that's not very long, is it? How effective can that be towards helping me get away? Well, it can be very effective. Let me tell you about Sergeant Tuller, Denver Police Department. 1983, he released a study that he did. He took a bunch of police officers to the range and found out that going from a holstered condition to putting 2 shots on a piece of paper took an average of 1.5 seconds. He then turned around and said, how far can somebody travel in 1.5 seconds? His perspective was, if a bad guy has a knife or a club in his hand and he's charging at me and it's going to take me 1.5 seconds to shoot him, how far does he have to be away from me in order for me to be safe? He determined that 1.5 seconds, that bad guy, an average person, can travel 21 feet. So we'll round that off to 20 because it'll be easier to think about 20 than 21, because we're going to be doing some math in just a moment. So that's what he found, 1.5 seconds and 21 feet, or 20 feet. What does that look like in reality, in the situation that you might be facing? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's another video. Take a look. "100 feet. How'd I do?" Okay, so now you saw how long it takes for me to run 100 feet. 7 to 8 seconds. And when somebody was throwing something at my head, it took 9 to 12 seconds to reload that gun. So, can I cover 100 feet in 7 or 8 seconds and get to the bad guy before he has anything more that he can do? I mean, what's he have in his hands? When the gun is empty, all he has is a big metal stick. I've been attacked by people with big sticks before. I did quite well. I'm not afraid of a big metal stick, are you? Compared to somebody shooting bullets at you? So maybe when the time comes, while he's reloading that gun, you and a friend or two can be throwing things at his head. You or a friend or two can be running at him while he's dodging things that are being thrown at his head. You get there, and now you're grabbing him and doing whatever it is that you can think to do at the moment you're there. And you're taking more and more time of his away. He can't reload the gun when he's trying to deal with things flying at his head. He can't reload the gun when you're grabbing him or the gun. So all he has is a big metal stick. Moments later, your people who are around you are going to look and see that you're doing stuff, and somebody, maybe 4 or 5 somebodies, will come along and jump on top. So now you've got him on the ground with 4 or 5 guys on top of him. What does that work out to? Around 1,000 pounds of weight. That's what it works out to. He can't do anything with 1,000 pounds of weight on top of him. So you've successfully brought the situation to an end. You've stopped him from doing any more harm to any others. Now, there's other information that I would like to share with you too about distance. You don't have to run towards him, you can run away from him. You've got that time, and in 7 or 8 seconds, you can get 100 feet. If you're in a church, you can be in the middle of the sanctuary and still be less than 100 feet away from an exit. Now, think about it for a moment. There's going to be a lot of people running for that exit. Maybe instead of running for the exit, you run to get behind the stage that your pastor is standing on. A lot of places there's curtains back there, and behind there's more stuff, and there's an exit back even further behind that. But as soon as you can get out of sight of the shooter, he's going to be looking somewhere else to shoot, not at you. So find some avenue you can go that is different from the avenue that people are going in general, so that you're not part of 1,000 people trying to get through a 6-foot doorway. Go in some other direction. If that direction happens to be at the shooter, great, you just saved countless lives. If you're going in some other direction, take people with you. Save a few lives, even in the avenue of escape. Okay, so there you have it. More people die in church every year than in most active shooter situations. You've got 4 to 6 or 9 to 12 seconds. You've got time to do things. Think about it now. You'll succeed. Thank you.